What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, July 9th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:30 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from here in the US and from Eastern Europe. So it looks like we have a Russian sub hanging out off the coast of Cape Cod. I reported on this over the holiday weekend, and we had a P-8 Poseidon sub hunter over the 4th of July weekend fly up and down the East Coast, and it was hanging out off the coast of Long Island, Cape Cod, and Maine. Well, today we had two P-8 Poseidon sub hunters go up to Cape Cod. There's actually one there right now, right off the tip of Cape Cod, okay? And then there was another one doing this figure eight loop near Nantucket. So we have one P-8 Poseidon sub hunter patrolling near Provincetown, Cape Cod, and we had another one up here just about a few hours ago, and it's now heading back to base in Jacksonville. So they're doing basically round-the-clock surveillance. They're operating in shifts, okay? So the P-8 Poseidon that was patrolling this area earlier today was replaced by a new one, and they're basically maintaining round-the-clock surveillance. This is extremely unusual, guys. What's even more unusual is one of these sub-hunters took off from Patuxent River, which is a very strategic base in the Chesapeake Bay close to D.C., where we have a lot of our nuclear war command and control planes. That's actually the East Coast home base of our nuclear war command and control planes. And for one of these sub-hunters to be deployed from there is a sign that something is going on over here near Nantucket and Cape Cod. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. So I'm going to continue to update you guys on that. We also have the Russian EMP satellite orbiting over the U.S. every single day, multiple times a day. This Russian satellite called Cosmos 2558 released some kind of sub-satellite over a week ago, and both of those objects, the satellite and the sub-satellite, are now orbiting the Earth and flying over the U.S. every single day. Now, in addition to that, we have a U.S. presidential Doomsday plane that just took off from Offutt Air Base. We also have a nuke sniffer up in the air over Minnesota, and this is actually the second day in a row that we've had both a nuke sniffer and a Doomsday plane airborne. Now, what's also interesting is we have a reconnaissance plane flying over Michigan, which is very, very rare, okay? And what's very rare about this is not only that it's flying over Michigan, but that it's going east to west. And what that means is that it's looking actually up to the north, okay? And so this indicates that the U.S. is keeping an eye out for threats coming from the north or the south, okay, coming from Canada. You know what comes from Canada? Russian missiles, okay? That's one of the paths of Russian cruise missiles and ballistic missiles if they were to launch a first strike on the U.S. So we have a presidential Doomsday plane up in the air, second day in a row. Nuke sniffer up in the air, second day in a row. We have sub-hunters now forming patrols around the clock off of New England. And we also have some very unusual activity off of Alaska. Look at this, guys. I've never seen anything like this before. We have 8 refuelers, aerial refuelers, heading up to the Aleutian Islands, and there's actually 2 E-3 Sentry AWACS planes that took off from Anchorage. Look at that. So here you can see them flying down towards the Aleutian Islands. This is very rare for there to be 2 of them in this area. And then 8 aerial refuelers going up there to the Aleutian Islands right now from various parts of the U.S. This is very, very concerning. And no, that's not an exercise. So we also have some major breaking news coming in from Texas. Fears are growing that the death toll in the Texas floods could surge as over 170 people remain unaccounted for, and there's now an official death toll of over 110. So we need to keep Texas in our prayers. And guys, it's summertime, flash floods, hurricanes, thunderstorms, tornadoes. These are things that happen in the summer, so you need to be prepared for that. If you live close to a stream or a river that can rapidly rise and has in the past, you need to have plans for that. If you live in an area that gets tornadoes and severe thunderstorms, you need to have plans for that. And of course, if you live in Hurricane Alley, the southeastern U.S., you need to have a plan, okay? And we have some very, very disturbing news coming out of Germany. Germany's Foreign Office has accused the Chinese military of targeting one of its aircraft with a laser during a European Union operation. The aircraft was taking part in the EU's Operation Aspides, a defensive maritime security operation to protect international shipping in the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Persian Gulf against Houthi attacks. Endangering German personnel and disrupting the operation is entirely unacceptable, the Foreign Office said in a July 8th post on X. The Chinese ambassador was summoned to the Federal Foreign Office today. Up to 700 German armed forces personnel were taking part in the EU-led operation in the Red Sea to prepare for Houthi attacks on key trade routes, according to German newspaper Der Spiegel, after Berlin had extended its participation in the mission in January. As well as Germany, the mission involves Belgium, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Italy, Latvia, the Netherlands, and Sweden. The paper said that China had targeted a German reconnaissance aircraft off the coast of Yemen without specifying the model of plane. Der Spiegel said the incident occurred when the aircraft was approaching a Chinese frigate. Possible damage is still unclear and is still being investigated, the paper added, according to a translation. Another German outlet, Tagesschau, reported an unspecified Chinese warship directed a laser at the aircraft. China's defense ministry announced its military presence in the area on June 10th. It said its 47th Naval Escort Task Force was in the Gulf of Aden, where it was underway replenishment in which fuel, munitions, and stores are transferred from one ship to another. The statement named the supply ship Gyahu and the guided missile destroyer Bayatu. The task force also carried out training for shipborne helicopter flights and light weapons live fire shooting. China said Germany got its facts wrong after the NATO member accused the People's Liberation Army of using a laser against one of its aircraft. China had yet to give its account of the incident, and Germany has yet to disclose details regarding the new type. So this is huge news, guys, okay? China used a laser on one of the German reconnaissance planes operating off the coast of Yemen, okay? And Germany is not releasing any details about the damage or what kind of aircraft was hit. And China is not giving any information on their account of the incident. So you see how things are escalating, guys, okay? This is how World War III can start, all right? So get prepared, guys. The situation between NATO and Russia, China, the BRICS countries is continuing to escalate. And Russia launched a record-sized attack last night on Ukraine. Ukraine's Air Force said early on Wednesday that Russia had fired 728 drones. Wow. 6 Kinzhal hypersonic ballistic missiles and 7 cruise missiles at Ukraine overnight. This is insane, guys. This might be the largest drone attack ever recorded in human history. 700 drones used against Ukraine. That is just unfathomable. And, you know, these drones basically have the same destructive power as those missiles that Russia launches. It's just that they're much cheaper to produce, and they can avoid radar. They can better maneuver through different places because they fly slower, a lot slower than cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. So, you know, you got to think of these drones as basically like cruise missiles. So that's like the equivalent of 700 missiles being launched at Ukraine, okay? Because they do a lot of damage, all right? So 728 drones, absolutely insane. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said the majority of the incoming targets were shot down, including by interceptor drones. So that's an interesting new concept that Ukraine started using and that they've entered into joint production with the U.S. on. And I think that's why Trump was so happy with the phone call he had with Zelensky last week before the 4th of July, because Zelensky announced that the U.S. and Ukraine will be entering into joint production of not just attack drones, but also interceptor drones, which is a very interesting concept. And what that does is frees up Ukraine's more expensive air defense systems to target missiles instead of drones, okay? So rather than depleting their expensive air defenses, shooting down these cheap Russian drones, they can just build a counter drone essentially to shoot down or destroy the drones that are coming in. So once again, Ukraine showing a lot of ingenuity and adaptiveness. And the Ukrainian leader said it was the highest number of aerial targets in a single day. The Air Force said Kyiv shot down just under 300 drones, with more than 400 drones straying before they hit their targets. So 300 shot down, 400 actually hit their targets. That is just totally insane. And Ukraine shot down the 7 cruise missiles, according to the Air Force, which they did not mention any interceptions of the Kinzhal missiles. Ukrainian authorities said Moscow had focused the strikes on the northwestern city of Lutsk, close to the Ukrainian border with Poland and Belarus. The western city of Khmelnytsky was also targeted. Damage was reported across major cities including Kyiv, Dnipro, Kharkiv, and Mykolaiv, along with several other regions in northeastern, central, and southern Ukraine. This is a telling attack, and it comes precisely at a time when so many efforts have been made to achieve peace, to establish a ceasefire, and yet only Russia continues to rebuff them all, Zelensky said. And Trump is really furious about this. He said on Tuesday the U.S. had a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin. He added, he's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless. Wow. So Trump is not happy with Putin. He said last week that he was not happy with Putin. And yesterday, he's basically escalating his rhetoric against Putin now, okay, saying that the U.S. had a lot of bullshit thrown at it by Putin. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless. And he also said last week he was very disappointed after a phone call with Putin. And then after that call he was disappointed in, he had a good call with Zelensky. And shortly after that phone call with Zelensky and Putin, Trump announced that he was sending Patriot missiles to Ukraine. Okay, listen to this.
Are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard.
Are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard.
So Putin, shortly after Trump said this, launches the largest drone attack ever in human history and the largest ever on Ukraine. Clearly, Putin was sending a message to Trump, okay, that he doesn't care what Trump thinks about him. So this is absolutely huge. It looks like the friendship between Trump and Putin is now breaking down. So I think we're going to see the whole situation in Ukraine escalate more. Trump said on Monday the U.S. would send more weapons to Ukraine after the Pentagon last week confirmed a halt in some aid heading for the war-torn country. Kyiv officials were most concerned over supplies of interceptor missiles for the vaunted U.S.-made Patriot air defense system, Ukraine's only real option for shooting down ballistic missiles. Axios reported on Tuesday that Trump had promised Zelensky the U.S. would quickly send 10 Patriot interceptors and look at other ways to get the sought-after missiles to Ukraine, citing two anonymous sources. Wow, so 10 Patriot interceptors. I'm assuming those are just missiles, but maybe they're launchers. I don't know. 10 more launchers would be a lot. That would be another 40 missile tubes that the Ukrainians can use to launch at the Russian missiles. The president nodded to Ukraine's request for Patriot missiles during the NATO summit in June, saying he would see if we can make some available. The Wall Street Journal reported Trump was weighing sending another Patriot system to Ukraine, citing two officials. So very, very interesting situation. And NATO member Poland scrambled fighter jets overnight as Russia launched record numbers of drones and missiles at neighboring Ukraine. Poland's operational command said it had also placed its ground-based air defenses and radar systems on the highest state of readiness. The measures taken are aimed at ensuring security in areas bordering the threatened regions, Warsaw's military said in a post on social media, adding it was fully ready for immediate response. Wow. So, guys, Russia launched all these drones right next to Poland, okay? 700 drones, and most of them went up towards Lutsk, which is right on the border of Poland. That's literally just miles away, just a few miles away from Poland. Okay, so clearly a statement to Poland and the Ukrainians that they're not safe anywhere, okay? And Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell released a statement last week announcing the transfer of additional defensive weapons to Ukraine at the direction of U.S. President Donald Trump to ensure the Ukrainians can defend themselves while we work to secure a lasting peace. The statement follows an announcement by Trump that the U.S. would be sending more weapons to Ukraine, as well as reports that last week's halt in munitions shipments was ordered unilaterally by the Pentagon without permission of the president. And according to the Wall Street Journal, U.S. President Donald Trump told Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky during a call last Friday that he was not responsible for the halt in weapons shipments to Kyiv, adding that he had directed a review of munitions stockpiles after the U.S. struck Iran's nuclear sites last month, but didn't order the department to freeze the arms deliveries, suggesting that the move was made independently by Defense Secretary Hegseth and or the Pentagon without the permission of the president. Wow, that is absolutely huge news, okay? Now, this could obviously also be fake. You know, Trump could just be saying that just to bail himself out, or it could be real. We don't know. We know that Hegseth and Vance and the intelligence lady, what was her name, from Hawaii, I forgot her name, I'm sorry, Tulsi Gabbard, they're all anti-Ukraine, okay? And it is very possible that maybe they decided on their own, and then Trump told them, no, you have to reverse course. So very, very concerning. And Netanyahu said on Monday when he went to the White House to meet with Trump that he thinks that he could work out a peace deal between Israel and the entire Middle East. He said, I think we can work out a peace between us and the entire Middle East. We can establish a very broad peace that includes all of our neighbors. Wow. So that is absolutely huge news and very concerning. Okay, Israel potentially entering into some kind of large regional peace treaty, which is biblical. Okay, we're heading into the biblical period of the tribulation. If that's true, if Israel signs some kind of big peace treaty with Iran and all these other countries, then we know that we're entering the tribulation period. And Trump said on Monday, I hope we are not going to have to do another strike on Iran. He also said he thinks the war between Israel and Iran is over. He also said he was not happy with Putin again. That was on Monday. Netanyahu also said there is an opportunity to explore in Syria. Iran is out of the picture. It could increase stability and security. There is a lot to gain for Syria from moving towards peace with Israel. So Netanyahu wants to sign some agreements with Syria. I think that's a very smart move by Netanyahu. And scientists are warning that there's apparently hundreds of dormant volcanoes that could soon erupt, with explosions more powerful than ever. This was reported by the Daily Mail in the UK. And 5 Israeli soldiers were ambushed and killed in northern Gaza a few days ago, and 14 injured. And Brazilian President Lula slammed President Trump for threatening BRICS with tariffs. He said it is not responsible or serious for him to be threatening the world on the internet. We are sovereign nations. If he thinks he can impose tariffs, we can too. And the Russian transportation minister Roman Starovoyt was found dead in an apparent suicide just hours after Putin fired him. So yeah, he probably wasn't involved in any kind of suicide. I think he was taken out. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I'm going to continue to monitor the nuclear forces. I forgot to mention also that we have encrypted data being transmitted by U.S. nuclear forces on the primary nuclear war frequency this afternoon. So something is definitely brewing, especially after this large Russian attack on Ukraine and the Russian subs off of Cape Cod and Long Island the past couple of days. Putin is definitely trying to scare Trump and send a message, okay? But I might be back later on tonight with either another video or a live update, and I will be in and out of the 24/7 live stream, which is ongoing right now. You can listen to that encrypted data being transmitted by U.S. nuclear forces. And until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is MyPatriot Supply. Guys, MyPatriot Supply is doing a massive sale on their 3-month emergency food supply. You can get 3 months of emergency food, 2,000 calories a day, for just $500. That's $200 off their normal price with free shipping included. This food has a shelf life of 25 years, and it's a variety of different types of food. So if you use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com, you can save $200 on their 3-month emergency food supply. The link is in the description below this video. That's preparewithNYPrepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video.